Hey, it's me, Big P, and I'm here with my Ice Crash Raider, the more updated version as we push on into red maps. So thought I'd do sort of an updated, more streamlined version of the build guide I did before. I think it was way too long. I said way too much random stuff without really having to. It's a pretty straightforward build, and it's even more straightforward now that I've kind of set up and figured out exactly what I want to do with it. We're going to run a tier 15 map right here. Nothing too scary, although hexproof is kind of annoying because we do have cast when damage taken frostbite. We unfortunately had to drop the Blade Storm. I love the Blade Storm, provide a lot of utility, but I'll explain why it was kind of like a clunky fix to a non-issue on the build. So tier 15, hopefully we don't die here. Oh, Hydrox. Conqueror mobs are, gonna make it a little scarier. But the build clears extremely fast and pretty well. It's really important to get a good weapon for this build, like attack speed. Damn, I'm getting more slowdown. Here's one of the... Yeah, there we go. I was about to say the single target's not looking so great, but just takes a little bit of a push. Honestly, I probably should be clearing in Blood Stance. That's one thing I wanted to mention about the build itself, is that once you get to a certain point, whether it's enough weapon range, or I'm using Pulverize, which increases the melee area, it actually really will affect the effective DPS of the Ice Crash, because it has 1, 2, 3 stages you see there. When your weapon's good enough, it should do plenty of damage, but for single target, like, you actually do have to aim it. So it's like a relevant thing. I have Berserk and I'm not even using Rage right now. But that's okay, I'm going to go over some skill gem choices you could make. And what like you can do differently, depending on what your setup is like. So yeah, as you can see, without using the Blade Storm, and without relying on the curse, let's see some single target here. Let's clear out these kids first. Wait for your war cry, and now not that great. I really do miss being able to apply frostbite on a whim. Gotta say, hey, can you guys stop? I'm trying to fight the boss here. Oh, he came to me. So it's actually okay. And a big thing about it is you can kind of... Oh no, don't ghost him. It's way tankier. You can kind of just sit here and... Oh, hello. Not bad. Yeah, so it's not crazy single target. I am looking on how to push it to, like, do Awakener and stuff like that. That's going to be a bit more. Yeah, there's only 15 left. You're going to need a lot of loaded physical damage. You're going to need better gear than I have. Speaking of which, I have kind of converted to a Magic Find setup right now because my friend gave me Biscos, and then I kind of went off the handle. I bought these two and then dropped this. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to farm some quantity to fund my second and third and beyond builds of the league. I'm going to go over the links, I guess, real quick. Let's just take a quick look at the weapon because attack speed feels great for Ice Crash, as does the amount of flat damage. I think the DPS on this sort is like almost 700, maybe above 700. But attack speed is going to be really important for build feel. Obviously, ideally, we'd have a flat fizz roll instead of that flat fire. I'm going to try and annul that with Harvest or however we can do it. Get out of here, phone. Stop messaging me. But the Redeemer base just has so much juicy stuff on it. I would look for a Redeemer base. Probably iron level, I think this one is 84. Ooh. Yeah, 84 and up should be okay. And before that, I mean, I was crafting on the harvests on like this thing, which was 75, I would say is the bare minimum once you get into maps and you want to actually start investing in things. But yeah, a good sword is pretty important for the build. A good weapon, really, any version of the build, it's going to be very important. Let's go into the Ice Crash itself. So we got Ice Crash, Fist of War I went back into. It does cause a little bit of inconsistency, but it actually, I think the cooldown on it is, what was it? Does it say? I don't know. It's got a really small mana multiplier, and it's just a lot of extra damage sometimes. Feels pretty good. Looks awesome. Red Ice Crash. Super cool. LE damage with attacks is a no-brainer, you know. Pulverize, if you don't have enough attack speed to make Pulverize feel good, you can swap in things like melee phys. I was using Rage before, actually. I'm going to swap back into that now. I just wanted to have Pulverize for that tier 15 map because that was a little scary. Fortify is just Fortify. It's a huge damage multiplier for melee attack skills, and then provides you with Fortify, which is further, you know, juiced up by Rampart. Not that huge, but I like it. And then Cold Pen, this would be one of the later game links as you get into maps and bossing. I really just think there's no other way to kind of make it into the like they'll just resist too much elemental damage. You'll really notice against certain mob types that's like, wow, this guy's really not dying. I'm really just smashing against him over and over, probably because they have a lot of cold resistance. So between the Cold Pen here, the Wise Oak and the Taste of Hate, my resistances are absolutely scuffed. So if I just hit the Wise Oak, I'm penetrating all my fire damage, which isn't relevant. But if I hit the Taste of Hate at the same time as the Wise Oak, yeah, so it's like a super whack setup. If you have, if you don't want to use Wise Oak, which I don't blame you for, if you have a setup similar to mine, you can just use, what is it, Ziri's Promise. For a conversion build like us, it's going to be a lot of extra chaos damage, which is very nice. My boots I changed, but they're pretty, you know, standard stuff. Just move speed, some resistant life. Helm is the same as it was before, and the gloves I believe are the same as well. There's something I forgot to mention in the last video. So let me go over the links I have here. Berserk, that's just if you have Rage and you want like a little super duper button at the end when you're trying to do a boss. You run through the map, then pop the Berserk, pop all your stuff, and your exerted seismic cries will really take care of it. But that's actually something I wanted to go over. This 4-link here is super clutch for the build. It kind of took a little while to figure out exactly how this should all come together, but basically the two main skills are Dash and Seismic Cry, and these are supported by Blood Magic and Second Wind. And so what happens here is my left click, Seismic Cry, will, a lot of these, the mana costs of these War Cries are actually more oppressive than you might think, especially if you're just randomly, you know, casting them. Between that and spamming my dash back and forth, that can add up. So yeah, see, that's almost 40, and this is 46, which is, you know, using one after the other. When I would, if it wasn't Blood Magic, would take almost all the mana pool, and so that would kind of force us into not being able to Ice Crash when you dash into a pack, which is horrible. You know, that's how you get yourself killed. But with the Blood Magic, you barely even notice it. Doesn't really matter. We're out regenning it and or leeching it pretty much immediately. So it's well worth it for consistency of, you know, the attacks when you come out with it. We are using Blood Rage now on the middle click because my friend showed me that you can put like the second bar as like middle click and like other relevant things. I thought I didn't have enough space on the skill bar. Blood and Sand, I would say, it's not super necessary for the build, but something to consider is that area of effect affects the DPS of Ice Crash in a way where the 1, 2, 3, those are the 3 separate hits of the Ice Crash, and the first one deals way more damage than the second and the third, so you kind of do have to aim the skill a bit. Something to kind of keep in mind. So area of effect, whether it's Pulverize or Blood and Sand, whatever you're using, it is going to be a relevant factor in not only your clear, obviously, but your DPS as well. Speaking of DPS, you might notice my Seismic Cry is at 5 exerted attacks instead of 4. That's because we went into Measured Fury. I think almost any attack build, if you're not using a War Cry, you're doing something wrong. We're just using the 1. It's enough to go into Call 2 Arms and go all the way into here, into Measured Fury. Just because exerting an additional attack, increasing cooldown recovering speed, and having the exerted attacks deal a bit more damage. It's not 100% uptime when our build is full. Even now, you know, well, I guess we can't do our smashes, but without leeching mana. But even if it doesn't mean 100% uptime, even if every hit isn't exerted, getting that one extra hit and having it recover that much faster, it's going to translate to way smoother, way more consistent DPS overall. It's not 100% uptime, like I said, but still, got to get your war cries on. They are absolutely ridiculous, and I feel like they're going to be nerfed, if not, you know, mid-league, the next league. What else did I go into? I went into this quick step because I'm farming, you know, maps kind of fast. Vitality Void and is nice. We might even go Val Pact if we do end up using the Soul Tether in our belt slot. I was searching stun because I guess I should go over the defensive layers that the build has. So not only do we have a lot of evasion, dodge, chance, all that crap, chance to dodge, evasion rating, a decent amount of armor, so we are using molten shell. Arrow dancing is fantastic. For a lot of my friends that are playing slam builds without much evasion or anything like that, keep complaining about it getting off screened. The fact that we are using evasion allows us to kind of slip into exactly where we need to go and then crash properly. I personally love arrow dancing because so many of the conqueror mobs, like the incursion mob, there's just so many projectiles in the game. Getting off screen feels so bad. So as a melee character, we kind of have to keep in mind that this might be something that you want to pick up if you're in that area of the tree and you're an evasion rating. I know a lot of slam builds are going to be over here, but honestly, the raider, the ranger start rather, like this makes it almost all worth it. You might even be able to go up into phase acro. If you go crit, you might have a very different tree. You might drop like all this stuff. Probably would still keep call to arms and then go up into here for stuff like Heartseeker and then whatever else you can get up here, whatever else you can fit. My tree's kind of stretched right now, and I do like being in like the chunkier side, getting a lot of strength, and being in the life wheel, not filling it out yet, of course. But you know, we'll see as we drop things like diamond skin, because I've been needed to shore up my resistances. My gear's still kind of crappy, and I'm being lazy about replacing it, so much so that I've just put on a bunch of Magic Find gear. But as you can see, I mean, we ran a red map and it was okay. That was a tier 15 map too, you know, not just like a tier 11. So it wasn't the fastest clear, but overall I'm super pleased with how the build has turned out. I guess I didn't really mention the defensive layers that the attack itself provides. So arrow dancing and evasion, that's one thing, but the fact that we can chill and freeze and stun mobs, these all, you know, it's not an exact science, but I've like stunned like innocence, like out of his like Kamehameha and stuff like that, like stuff I've never done before. So I wouldn't, you know, rely on it 100% unless you really are like running, like I'm helping my friends when I help them with like tier 1 and like 2 maps. I'll like freeze the boss and they'll stay frozen for like a second and a half. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, either way, I don't want to ramble on too long with this video. Kind of wanted to make a more streamlined version. War Chief just has some damage links in it. That's really it. Blood Rage is Blood Rage. Cast when damage taken, our guard skill, which is Molten Shell. Frostbite, our curse. And Frost Bomb, which applies cold exposure. This is all just to deal with cold resistance. I'm not sure if the cold exposure here overlaps with the cold exposure we have on Avatar of the Veil. I don't really care. Maybe it'd be better to like put like increased duration or something on this. Whatever. We got Blood and Sand, Hatred, and Herald of Ice here. I'm going to pop an Enlighten in here and see if we can fit in a Herald of Purity instead. Because if we can get enough flat phys on our sword, I'd probably have to swap to a different, more relevant sword if we do that instead. But a more physical damage multiplier will actually apply to the Ice Crash after it's converted. I think. I mean, it should. I mean, it's providing... I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions, I got my AC in, so hopefully my computer issues I've had will be less prevalent in the coming days. I'm going to probably play this all of Thursday. It's Thursday right now, so we're going to try and stream as much as we can. And then this weekend, I think we're going to level a new build. It's going to be a very fun cast on crit build using some newly buffed uniques. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'm going to leave this POB in the description. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments here, or come find me on Twitch. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.